What would you do if you saw a little girl walking through the freezing cold, holding nothing but a small bottle of medicine?
No jacket.
No food, just a serious look on her face, like she had something really important to do. Would you stop and ask her where she's going? Would you wonder why someone so young looks so focused and strong? This is not just any story. It's the story of a kind-hearted billionaire, a brave 7-year-old girl, and one small moment that changed both of their lives forever. It's about love, pain, and hope, about how one good choice can fix many broken things. So stay with me till the end. It's a story that might make you cry, but also smile. And hey, comment below where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story reaches. I'm pinning the best comment, so make sure yours is special. Sara held the small bottle of medicine tightly in her cold little hands. The wind was strong, and her thin sweater did nothing to keep her warm. Her shoes were old and torn, and every step on the cold pavement made her feet hurt. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Her grandma was sick at home, lying in bed, waiting for this medicine. That was all that mattered to Sara right now. She hadn't eaten anything all day. Her stomach hurt, but she had gotten used to that feeling. She had only enough money for the medicine, not for food. So she chose the medicine. Her love for her grandma was more important than anything else. People walked past her on the street. Some were on their phones, some were laughing, some were in a hurry. No one noticed the little girl with messy hair and tired eyes. No one asked if she was okay. She looked too serious, too focused for a child. But to Sara, she wasn't just a child today. She was on a mission. Her hands had turned red from the cold. Her lips were dry, and her fingers felt stiff. But still, she walked as fast as she could, holding the medicine close to her chest like a treasure. She thought about her grandma's kind eyes and soft voice, how she always told Sara bedtime stories even when she was tired. That's why Sara didn't mind the pain. She just wanted to see her grandma smile again. She crossed the street carefully, watching the cars, still holding the bottle tight. One man almost bumped into her but kept walking without saying a word. Another woman looked at her for a second, then looked away. Sara didn't care. She wasn't looking for help. She just wanted to get home in time. But what she didn't know was that someone had been watching her. Someone who had seen her pass by this street more than once. A person who noticed how she always walked alone, with tired eyes and a brave face. Someone who hadn't stopped thinking about her for days. But someone was watching. Someone who hadn't stopped thinking about her for days. Inside a sleek black luxury car parked near the corner of the street, a young man named Alex sat silently. He was in his late 20s, dressed in a sharp coat, his hands resting on the steering wheel. His car looked expensive, shining under the city lights, but his mind wasn't on business or money at that moment. He was staring through the window, his eyes following a little girl walking on the sidewalk. It wasn't the first time he had seen her. A few days ago, he noticed the same girl near the pharmacy. She looked small and tired, her clothes too thin for the cold weather. She didn't ask anyone for help. She never begged. She only walked quickly, her face serious, always holding something in her hand. The first time, he thought she was just passing by. The second time, he watched longer. The third time, he couldn't stop thinking about her. She was different. There was something about the way she moved, like she was on a mission. Alex had grown up with money, comfort, and people who helped him whenever he needed it. But looking at this little girl, he felt something stir in his heart. She was clearly struggling, yet there was strength in her steps. And that strength touched something deep inside him. Today, he saw her again. This time, she was walking faster. Her hands were red, her cheeks pale from the cold. She clutched a small bottle tightly, as if it were the most valuable thing in the world. Alex recognized the label. It was medicine. His car heater was on, keeping him warm, but seeing her made him feel cold inside. His chest felt heavy. Who was she? Where was she going? Why was a little girl walking alone through the freezing streets holding medicine? He didn't think any longer. Without a second thought, he pressed the button and rolled down the window. The cold wind rushed in, but he didn't care. As she got closer, he leaned slightly forward and spoke in a calm, kind voice. "Do you need help?" His words hung in the air. It was a simple question, but it carried a lot of meaning. He wasn't offering money. He wasn't giving advice. He was just asking, because he truly wanted to know. Sara froze. She stopped walking. Her eyes grew wide, and she stared at the man in the car. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. No one had ever asked her that before. Sara froze. No one had ever asked her that before. Sara stood still beside the car, holding the medicine tightly in her small hands. Her cheeks were red from the cold, and her eyes looked tired but alert. She didn't answer right away. She looked at the man in the car, unsure if she could trust him. People didn't usually talk to her. Most walked past like she didn't exist. But this man wasn't walking. He had stopped for her. He had spoken kindly. Still, she had to be careful. Alex noticed her hesitation. He didn't rush her. He leaned back slightly, giving her space. His voice stayed soft. "I don't mean to scare you," he said gently. "I just want to help. You've been walking around here for days. Are you okay?" Sara looked down, then slowly nodded. "I'm okay," she whispered. Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the wind. She didn't look up again, but her fingers tightened around the bottle. "Are you sure?" Alex asked, still calm. "It's freezing out here." She didn't answer for a moment. Then she finally spoke. "My grandma's sick. She needs this medicine." Alex's heart sank. So that's why the bottle was so important to her. It wasn't for herself. It was for someone she loved. Someone waiting at home in pain. He could see it now, clear as day. This girl wasn't just walking. She was racing against time. And she was doing it all on her own. "Have you eaten today?" he asked. Sara shook her head but quickly added, "I'm not hungry. I just need to get home. She's waiting for me." Her words hit him harder than he expected. Not hungry. She had clearly not eaten, but her priority wasn't food. It was her grandma. Most kids her age would cry for a snack or a toy, but this little girl only wanted to deliver medicine. Alex felt a strange mix of guilt and admiration. He had grown up surrounded by comfort. He had never faced anything like this. And yet, here she was, small, cold, and tired, but full of love and purpose. He knew he couldn't just let her go. "I understand," he said, "but the roads are slippery, and it's getting darker. Can I walk with you?" Sara looked unsure again. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. She looked into his eyes, trying to figure out if he was telling the truth. He looked honest. He didn't seem dangerous. He wasn't trying to take the medicine or stop her. He only wanted to walk. After a moment, she gave a small nod. "Okay," she said. Alex parked his car safely and stepped out. The cold hit him right away, but he didn't complain. He zipped up his coat and walked beside her. She didn't speak, just kept walking fast. He didn't ask too many questions either. He knew she wasn't used to talking to strangers, so he just walked with her, keeping a few steps behind, letting her lead the way. They passed busy streets, bright shops, and people rushing home. No one noticed them, but inside this quiet walk, something began to change. Alex's thoughts were no longer about meetings or money. They were about the little girl beside him. Her courage, her love for her grandma, her quiet strength. It all touched him deeply. He looked down at her as she marched on, her shoes torn, her jacket too thin for the cold. She was only 7, yet acting with more heart than most adults he knew. "Do you always go alone like this?" he asked gently, trying to make her feel safe. Sara nodded. "She can't walk anymore. She gets dizzy. So I go." Alex felt something tug inside his chest again. She didn't complain. She didn't ask for help. She just did what had to be done. He had never seen anything like this as they walked together. Alex's heart began to change. Sara led Alex down a narrow street that was quieter than the others. The tall buildings gave way to smaller ones. Their paint faded, and their walls cracked. There were no lights on the street, just the dim glow from a few old windows. It was cold, and the wind whistled through the gaps in the buildings. Sara didn't slow down. She knew the way by heart. Finally, she stopped in front of a small door made of thin wood. It looked old and weak, like it wouldn't last another winter. She pushed it open, and Alex followed her inside. The room was tiny. It was just one space, no separate bedroom, no kitchen, no bathroom in sight. There was only a small bed in one corner, a broken chair, and a few pots stacked on the floor. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, but it didn't work. The air was cold, even colder than outside. There was no heater, and the walls were damp. In the bed lay an elderly woman. Her skin was pale and her hands shook slightly. She was wrapped in old blankets, but they didn't seem warm enough. She was coughing, a deep, painful sound that made Alex's heart ache. Her eyes opened slowly when she heard the door. "Grandma," Sara whispered, hurrying to her side. "I got the medicine." She held up the bottle like it was a treasure. Her face lit up with a proud smile. Her grandma gave a small, tired smile in return. She reached out her hand and touched Sara's face gently. "You did good, my sweet girl," she said softly. Alex stood near the door, watching everything. His eyes moved around the room, taking in every detail. The broken floor tiles, the thin blankets, the empty shelves. This was how they lived. No heat, no food on the table, barely any space to move. And yet, it was filled with something he couldn't quite describe. He had visited mansions with marble floors and golden lights. He had seen castles in Europe, beach houses with 10 bedrooms, and penthouses that touched the sky. But none of those places ever made him feel like this. This little one-room home, falling apart in the cold, held something those rich homes never did: real love, real strength, real sacrifice. Sara helped her grandma sit up a little and gave her the medicine with care. Then she tucked the blanket around her shoulders and sat beside her, holding her hand. Alex finally stepped forward. "Hello, ma'am," he said gently. "My name is Alex. I saw your granddaughter walking in the cold and I just wanted to make sure she was safe." The old woman looked at him with tired eyes. She gave a small nod. "Thank you," she whispered. "She's all I have." "I can see that," Alex replied, his voice softer than before. "She's an amazing little girl." Sara looked up and smiled. "I'm okay now. She has the medicine." Alex nodded but said nothing. He was trying to hold back his emotions. This place, this moment, it was changing something inside him. He had always seen the world through the windows of his fancy car or the screens of his expensive gadgets. But now he was seeing it through Sara's eyes. And it looked very different. He looked around again. There was no fridge, no heater, no proper bed. Just an old pot with some rice in the corner and a thin curtain over the window. The cold air moved freely in and out. He couldn't imagine spending one night here, let alone living here every day. But what shocked him more than the room was Sara's strength. She didn't cry. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't even tell him how hard life was. She just focused on her grandma. That kind of love. It was rare, and it was powerful. Alex sat down on the old chair. "Do you go to school?" he asked Sara. She shook her head.
No.
"I stay home with grandma. I take care of her. And you go out to get medicine by yourself." She nodded. "I save coins. Sometimes I clean the shop windows. They give me a little money. Enough for bread and medicine." Alex felt his throat tighten. This wasn't a child's life. This was too hard, too painful. Yet, she carried it all on her tiny shoulders without complaint. He looked at the grandmother. "Do you have any help? Any relatives?" "No one," she said. "It's just us." Alex sat quietly for a few seconds. He had so many thoughts running through his head. He thought of his office where people argued over coffee flavors. He thought of his meetings where people fought for bonuses and cars. And then he looked at Sara, barefoot in torn shoes, smiling because her grandma had medicine. He had built mansions but had never seen real strength like this. He stood up and walked toward the door, then turned back. "Thank you for letting me come in," he said. "I'll see you both again." Sara smiled, and her grandma gave a soft nod as Alex stepped out into the cold again. He didn't feel the chill. Something warm was growing inside him. Something new. And as he got into his car, one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. The next day, Alex returned. He brought warm food, blankets, and a small heater with him. Sara opened the door and gave him a smile that warmed his heart more than anything he had ever felt. She helped him bring the things inside, and her grandmother, though surprised, welcomed him kindly. After they ate, Alex sat with the grandmother while Sara cleaned up. He wanted to know more. He wanted to understand why this little girl had so much weight on her shoulders. "Can I ask about your daughter?" Alex asked softly, not wanting to cause pain. The grandmother nodded slowly. "Her name was Layla," she said. "She was my only child. Kind and hard-working woman. She did everything for Sara." Alex listened quietly. "She used to work as a house cleaner," the grandmother continued. "She would leave early in the morning and come home late at night. Even after a long day, she always came home smiling, hugging Sara, helping with homework. Life wasn't easy, but she made it feel warm." "What happened to her?" Alex asked gently. "She got sick," she said. "Very sick. We didn't have money for good treatment. I tried my best. I sold everything I could, but it wasn't enough." Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked away for a moment. "She passed away 3 years ago," she said, her voice almost a whisper. Sara was only 4, too young to understand it all, but she felt it. After that, it was just us. Alex looked at the little girl, now sitting on the floor, folding a blanket neatly. She moved carefully like she had done it many times. Too many times for someone her age. "She grew up fast," the grandmother continued. "She takes care of me now. I'm not strong anymore. I can't walk much. I cough too much. Some days I feel like I'm a burden." "You're not," Alex said quickly. "You're doing your best." She smiled sadly. "My best doesn't feel like enough. Sara deserves better. A warm bed, food every day, school, friends. But we don't have anyone. No family, no help." Alex felt a lump in his throat. He had come from a world where everything was at his fingertips. And here was a little girl and her grandmother, fighting every day to survive with nothing. "I've seen her outside many times," Alex said. "Near the pharmacy." "Yes," the grandmother replied. "She saves coins. She does small things for shopkeepers, cleans, helps carry things. They give her a little money. She always saves it for me. She never buys herself a treat." Alex thought of all the children he had seen in his life, including his younger cousins. Kids who cried over the wrong color toy or the internet being too slow. And here was Sara, not even asking for food when she was starving. "Why didn't you ask anyone for help?" Alex asked. The grandmother gave a small, tired shrug. "We tried once or twice, but people are busy. They have their own problems. And some look at us like we're just begging." I didn't want Sara to grow up feeling small. Alex understood. The pain of being judged for needing help. It made people stop asking. But it also kept them stuck in silence. "Do you have any dreams for her?" he asked. The grandmother's eyes lit up for a moment. "I dream of her going to school, learning big things, becoming someone strong and proud. I dream of her laughing without worry, sleeping without cold. I want her to be happy." Alex nodded. He didn't speak right away. His heart was too full. He stayed for another hour, talking and listening. He learned how their small income came from odd jobs. He learned that the medicine they needed was expensive, and they had to skip meals sometimes to buy it. He learned that Sara hadn't been to school since her mother died. She had no one to take her and no money to pay the fees. When he finally stood up to leave, the grandmother reached for his hand. "Thank you," she said, "for listening." He nodded. "Thank you for trusting me." As he stepped outside, he looked back one more time. The door closed gently behind him. Walking back to his car, he didn't feel the cold wind. His mind was busy with thoughts, questions, and something new. An urge to do more. He sat inside the car for a few minutes, not driving yet. He looked at the small houses around him. He thought of the warm homes he had built and the rich people he had served. But nothing they owned ever came close to the strength he saw in that tiny room. He had money, yes, but he had never used it like this before. He had never looked at someone like Sara and thought, "This is where it matters." He couldn't forget what he saw, and he couldn't walk away. The very next morning, Alex was back. This time, he wasn't alone. He had a driver with him carrying 2 bags full of groceries, warm clothes, and more medicine. He knocked gently, and Sara opened the door with wide eyes. She hadn't expected him to return so soon. "I brought a few things," Alex said with a small smile. Sara stepped back to let him in. Her grandma was sitting up in bed, looking much better than the day before. The room still felt cold, but something about Alex's presence made it warmer. He placed the groceries on the small table and took out the medicine. "This will help you breathe better," he said gently to the grandmother. "Thank you," she whispered, truly touched. "You've already done too much." Alex shook his head. "Actually, I came back because I wanted to talk." He pulled a small chair closer and sat down. Sara sat beside her grandma, watching quietly. "I know we just met," Alex began, "but seeing the way you two live, it's not fair. No one should have to choose between medicine and food, especially not a little girl like Sara." Sara looked down at her hands, not sure what to say. "I want to help," Alex continued. "Not just with food today or medicine for a week. I want to help you both have a better life. A new place to live, warm clothes, regular meals, everything you need." The grandmother was silent for a long time. She blinked slowly and tried to find the right words. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why would you do this for us?" Alex leaned forward. "Because no one else did. And because Sara reminded me what true strength looks like. She reminded me that sometimes people just need someone to care." Tears formed in the grandmother's eyes, but she held them back. "It's too much. I don't want to take advantage." "You're not," Alex said kindly. "You didn't ask for anything, but I'm offering because I want to. You deserve peace. Sara deserves a chance to be a child." The grandmother looked at Sara, whose eyes were now bright with hope. For once, she didn't look worried or tired. She looked like a little girl again. "Can we say yes?" Sara asked quietly. The grandmother looked at Alex, then back at her granddaughter. Slowly, she nodded. "Yes." Alex smiled, relieved and happy. "Great. I already spoke to someone who has a small apartment nearby. It's clean, warm, and ready for you. I'll take care of the rent. I'll also arrange for someone to visit regularly. Someone who can help with meals, cleaning, anything you need." He turned to Sara. "And I want to help you get back to school. Would you like that?" Sara's eyes lit up. "Really? Really," he said. "You're smart, and I know you'll do great." For the next hour, they talked about the plan. Alex asked about their daily needs, any food allergies, what kind of things made them happy. He listened carefully, making notes in his phone. Everything mattered. Later, he showed them pictures of the apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was neat, warm, and cozy. There was a real kitchen, a bathroom with hot water, and even a small balcony. "I never thought we'd have something like that," the grandmother said softly. "You do now," Alex said. That evening, movers arrived. With Sara's help, they packed their few things. Some clothes, a few books, a photo of Sara's mother, and her favorite blanket. They didn't own much, but everything they had was full of memories. Alex helped carry things to the car. As they drove to the new apartment, Sara stared out the window in amazement. The world looked different, brighter. When they arrived, she ran into the apartment and touched everything: the couch, the kitchen sink, the warm radiator. She opened the cupboards and smiled when she saw food already there. Her grandmother sat down on the soft bed and sighed in relief. "I never thought we'd sleep in a place like this." Alex stood near the door and watched them settle in. "I'll come back tomorrow to see how you're doing," he said, "and we'll start looking at schools for Sara." Before leaving, he turned to Sara and said, "One more thing. I'm proud of you." Sara smiled, not used to hearing those words. But deep down, she knew they were true. As Alex walked out that night, something inside him had changed. He had built many things in his life: houses, businesses, deals. But nothing felt as meaningful as helping this little family. And he wasn't done. He had a bigger idea. Alex couldn't sleep that night. After dropping Sara and her grandma at their new home, he sat in his big mansion alone, thinking. His house had everything: gold chandeliers, expensive furniture, the latest gadgets, but it all felt empty. The warmth in Sara's smile stayed with him. Her bravery, her love for her grandma, and her quiet strength had touched something deep inside him. He didn't want this to be just a one-time act of kindness. He wanted to do more, a lot more. The next morning, Alex called a meeting at his company. His workers were surprised. Usually, his meetings were about business deals, numbers, and targets. But today, he looked different. Calm, focused, and full of new energy. "We are going to make a change," he began. "From now on, our company will not only focus on profit. We will focus on people." Everyone looked at each other, confused. Alex continued, "There are many Saras out there, kids walking in the cold, hungry, scared, trying to care for someone they love. We're going to help them." He explained his new plan. First, he would start a program that helped poor children, giving them food, clothes, school supplies, and a safe place to study. His team would visit areas where people lived in difficult conditions. They would talk to families, listen to their stories, and offer real help. Next, he wanted to support sick elders. Just like Sara's grandma, many old people had no one to care for them. Alex promised to fund home nurses, medicine, warm meals, and even build a few small care centers for the ones who couldn't walk or live alone. Some of his board members looked worried. "This will cost money," one of them said. "A lot of money." Alex nodded. "I know. But what's the use of money if it can't bring light into someone's dark day? We make millions. It's time we shared some of it." Others smiled, inspired by his words. A few even clapped. Slowly, one by one, they all agreed to help him. Within a few weeks, his plan started taking shape. He set up a new team called Hope First. This team went into neighborhoods with high poverty, looking for families that needed urgent help. They worked with schools, hospitals, and volunteers. Alex gave them full support. Sara and her grandma became the first faces of the project. Their story was shared quietly without showing too much. No fame, no attention-seeking, just truth. People were touched. They sent letters, small donations, and many even offered to volunteer. Something strange happened next. The world began to notice. News channels picked up the story of the billionaire who changed his business to help the poor. People who once doubted Alex now admired him. Some called him the kind billionaire. But Alex didn't care about titles. He just cared about the work. His company's staff started feeling proud. They weren't just part of a business anymore. They were part of something good. They wore shirts with the words "Kindness First" and held events in schools and hospitals. They gave books to kids. They taught elders how to use phones. They delivered food to empty fridges. One afternoon, Alex visited Sara and her grandma again. They looked healthy and happy. Sara had started school and had made new friends. Her teacher said she was one of the brightest students in class. Alex brought her a new book and asked her how she was doing. "I'm learning poems now," Sara said proudly. "And I want to be a doctor one day, so I can help people too." Alex smiled. "You'll be a great doctor." Sara's grandma thanked him again, but Alex shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. You both gave me more than I gave you. You reminded me of what really matters." As he left their home, children from nearby ran up to him. They had heard stories about him and wanted to meet the man who helped Sara. He knelt and spoke with them. He asked about their dreams. Some wanted to be teachers, others artists, and one said she wanted to build homes. "Then do it," Alex said, "and I'll help if you ever need it." That night, as he looked out from his office window, watching the city lights, Alex felt full. Not with money, not with power, but with something real. Purpose. He had finally found it. And then, something even more beautiful happened. It had been almost a year since that cold day when Sara walked through the busy street with a bottle of medicine in her hands. So much has changed since then. She now lived in a warm house with her grandma. She had new clothes, good food, and went to school every day. Most importantly, she had a new friend. Alex. Not just a friend, really. He had become like family. One afternoon, Alex came to visit with exciting news. A big charity event was happening in the city. Many important people would be there: business leaders, doctors, teachers, and even reporters. Alex wanted Sara to come and share her story. First, she was shy. "I'm just a little girl," she said softly. "Why would they want to hear me?" Alex smiled and said, "Because your story can inspire others. You were brave, strong, and kind. That's something the world needs to hear." Sara looked at her grandma, who nodded gently. "Tell them what you went through," her grandma said. "Tell them how love kept you going." So they agreed. A few days later, Sara stood backstage in a big hall. Lights were shining bright. People were dressed in suits and fancy dresses. There were cameras and microphones. But Sara held Alex's hand tightly. He bent down and whispered, "Just speak from your heart. I'll be right here." When her name was called, the room grew quiet. Sara walked onto the stage, her small hands holding a paper, though most of her speech was in her memory. She looked at the large crowd and took a deep breath. "My name is Sara," she began. "Last year, I was just a little girl walking in the cold. My grandma was sick. We had no money. I hadn't eaten all day, but I had to get her medicine. She needed me." She paused and looked around. Some people were already wiping their eyes. No one helped me. No one asked if I was okay. Until one kind man in a big car stopped and spoke to me. He asked if I needed help. I didn't even know how to answer at first. Her voice trembled a bit, but she kept going. "He gave us food, a warm home, and helped me start school. He became my hero, not because he's rich, but because he cared. He saw me when no one else did." She turned slightly and looked at Alex, who sat in the front row, eyes shining with pride. "Now I go to school. I have friends. I want to be a doctor. I want to help kids like me, just like he helped me. Because even the smallest person can bring a big change, if someone believes in them." The room filled with the sound of claps, then cheers. People stood up, applauding her courage, her strength, and her honesty. Some were crying. Others were smiling through tears. Reporters wrote quickly. Camera flashes went off. Sara stood still, surprised but happy. Her heart felt full. When she came down from the stage, Alex hugged her. "You were perfect," he said. "I'm so proud of you." She looked up at him and said, "Thank you for believing in me." The rest of the evening, people came up to meet her. A teacher said she wanted to help other girls like Sara. A doctor offered free checkups at her school. A businessman said he would donate books and clothes. Sara didn't know it then, but her words had started something powerful. Alex watched it all happen. He didn't speak much that night. He just stood back, letting Sara shine. He didn't need to be in the spotlight. He already had everything he needed: faith, love, and a reason to keep doing more. Before the night ended, a news reporter asked Alex, "What made you help her in the first place?" He paused, then said, "She reminded me what real strength looks like. It wasn't in big buildings or big money. It was in a hungry girl, walking in the cold, just to help the one she loved." That quote was printed in newspapers the next morning. People across the country read it and shared it. Sara became a symbol of hope, not because she was famous, but because she was real. That night, as Alex drove Sara and her grandma home, the three of them laughed and talked like a small family. The big event was over, but something much bigger had begun. A movement. A change. A reminder. It all started with a little girl and a bottle of medicine. Full circle years passed and Sara grew up. She was no longer the small, hungry girl with a bottle of medicine in her hand. Instead, she was a strong young woman with a heart as big as her dreams. She had graduated from school, and now she was studying medicine at a university. Her goal was clear. She wanted to help children the way she had been helped all those years ago. Alex, too, had changed. He wasn't the young billionaire he once was. Time had added a few more lines to his face, and his hair had started to gray, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had drawn him to Sara in the first place. He had stayed true to his new purpose in life. His company had shifted focus from profit to making a real impact. He funded programs to help poor families, sick elders, and children in need of medical care. He had helped start a foundation for those just like Sara. One sunny afternoon, Alex and Sara found themselves together again, just like the old days. They were standing on the same busy street where they had met. The street, once cold and impersonal, was now full of life. Children played on the sidewalks, and people walked with smiles, exchanging stories. But it was different now. The street had been transformed. "Look at it," Alex said, his voice full of pride. "It's nothing like before." Sara smiled, squeezing his hand. She had grown up so much, but the memories of the past still held a special place in her heart. She looked around the street, and then her eyes landed on something in the distance. At the corner of the street, right where they had first met, there was a statue. It was a simple figure of a young girl holding a bottle of medicine, with a man standing beside her, his hand gently placed on her shoulder. The plaque under the statue read, "Kindness saves lives." Sara's breath caught in her throat as she read the words. She had never imagined that the small act of kindness from Alex would grow into something so powerful. The street, the city, and even the world had changed because of that one moment. The plaque was a symbol not only of what Alex had done for her, but also of how one small act of kindness could ripple through time, touching many lives along the way. Alex stood silently beside her. He didn't say anything at first. He just watched as Sara slowly walked toward the statue. When she reached it, she gently touched the figure of the girl, just as she had once held the bottle of medicine in her own hands. "I can't believe this," Sara whispered. "This is us." Alex stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "It is," he said softly. "And it's not just our story. It's the story of everyone who has ever been touched by kindness." They stood there for a while, just taking it all in. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the memory of how far they had come. They had both gone through struggles, but they had also come through stronger, with a renewed sense of purpose. They had found each other, and in doing so, they had found their own paths to happiness and fulfillment. As they stood there, a family passed by, a little girl skipping along with her mother. The mother stopped and looked at the statue. "That's the story of kindness," she said, smiling at her daughter. The girl nodded and smiled back at the statue as though she understood it all. Sara and Alex exchanged a quiet glance, both of them understanding the depth of what had just happened. The kindness they had shared was now inspiring the next generation. The plaque wasn't just a reminder of their past, but a message for the future. "You did this," Sara said, her voice full of gratitude. "You made all of this happen, not just for me, but for everyone." Alex smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "I only did what anyone should have done. The real heroes are the ones who keep this kindness alive. Like you." Sara felt a warmth in her chest. The journey she had started all those years ago, walking through the cold street with nothing but a bottle of medicine, had come full circle. She had found love, support, and a new sense of purpose. And now she was doing the same for others. She was becoming the person who could change lives with just one act of kindness. Looking up at the sky, Sara took a deep breath. "This is just the beginning," she said, her eyes shining with determination. "There's so much more to do." Alex nodded, his voice filled with pride. "You're right. The world needs more kindness. And I know you'll be part of that change." Sara smiled. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that with Alex by her side and the lessons of kindness guiding her, she was ready to take on anything. Together, they turned and walked away from the statue, hand in hand. They knew that the journey they had started would never truly end. Every step they took was another chance to help someone, to inspire others, and to continue spreading kindness wherever they went. And so, the story of Sara and Alex lived on. A story of kindness, courage, and the power of believing in someone, no matter how small they seemed. It was a story that would continue to inspire, one act of kindness at a time. Wow, what a journey this has been. From Sara's struggles with hunger and pain to the love, kindness, and hope that transformed her life. It's amazing how one act of kindness can change everything. Isn't it? If you had seen Sara walking through that cold street, holding the bottle of medicine in her tiny hands. Would you have stopped to help her? Would you have made the choice to step in, to make a difference, even if it seemed small? I'm really curious to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. I also want to hear where you're watching this from, whether it's from across the world or down the street. It's always incredible to see how far stories like this travel. Your thoughts and comments are so meaningful to me, and I love reading all of them. And just so you know, I'll be pinning the best comment. So if you have something kind, heartfelt, or insightful to share, make sure to leave it below. If the story touched your heart, or if it made you think about how we can all make the world a little better, hit that like button and share it with someone who might need a bit of inspiration today. It might just brighten their day in ways we can't even imagine. And, of course, if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe. I've got more real, powerful stories like this coming your way that are sure to move and inspire you. Thank you for being here and for being part of this beautiful community. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to share more stories with you. Take care, stay kind, and remember, small acts of kindness truly can change lives. See you in the next one.